Every superhero has a supervillain nemesis, and that extends even to the comic book companies themselves, because of course Marvel and DC are arch nemeses. But that wasn't always the case. There's evidence that they work together to do some illegal activities. Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to Market Power, where we look at the power of markets and economics to shape our world. And once you understand that power, you're gonna understand choices and consequences, and you're gonna be able to make meaningful change in your community and in your personal life. Now, it's no secret that I enjoy comic books and superhero stories. I've done plenty of videos about them, but today we're gonna talk about Marvel and DC. And I heard that they had once participated together in a cartel. And I was interested in this. As soon as I knew, I was like, there's got to be an interesting economic story behind that. So in this video, I'm going to show you three things. Like, one, is there actually evidence that they were engaged in a cartel together? Two, how are they able to maintain the cartel? And three, when did that cartel end? By the end of this video, you'll have the answer to all three of those questions. Plus, you'll understand why these comic books are on display in my videos. So my first question, is there evidence that Marvel and DC were engaged in a cartel? So what's a cartel? A cartel is when two companies get together and they decide to conspire to raise prices for consumers. So if a cartel is an agreement between two companies to set prices, we need to look for evidence for whether prices on comic books were going together. Like, do we see evidence that Marvel and DC were following the same pricing strategy? And at first, this might be hard to find. If you go back and try to find comic book prices, sometimes you'll get confused. You'll get like rare comic books, like the video I did on opening a box of rare comic books. But those aren't the prices we want. We want the original prices. But comic books are nice because they list the price right there on the cover. And so all we need to do is go back and find the covers for past comic books and see what the prices were for both Marvel and DC. Finding covers for past comic books is pretty easy. I did it by using eBay. I'm sure there are lots of other ways that you could do it, but I went on eBay and I just looked for issues of comic books published throughout the 60s and 70s and then looked at what the price was on the cover. I decided to get flagship titles for both of them, so I got Captain America for one, Superman for the other, and so all the prices you're going to see here are for Captain America and Superman, but I'm pretty sure that these prices apply to all the comic books during this time period. So what did the data say? If we look at Captain America and Superman, I'm just going to refer to them as Marvel and DC right now. In 1961, Marvel and DC both priced their comics at 10 cents. And then in 1962, February 1962, they both increased to 12 cents per comic. The comic book prices stay at 12 cents until 1969, and then right within 1 month of each other, Marvel and DC raise it from 12 cents to 15 cents, right? This is happening at the same time, and you have to have a little bit of warning before this because they design these titles much farther in advance of printing them. And so they set those prices around the same time. It's not like you can see that one company raised it to 15 cents and then quickly go over and change it. You're going to see this ahead of time. And so again, we're seeing these prices increase at the same time. They're staying there. There's a little bit of evidence here that they could have been going for a cartel. So we have that initial evidence. We're seeing prices stay the same and they're increasing to the same price at the same time. It could be that they're colluding with each other to create these prices. So this is the answer to our first question. There is some evidence that they were colluding to raise prices, and they raised prices at the same time. Now, the second question is, how are they able to enforce this cartel? Now, there's a fundamental problem with cartels, and that is that everybody wants to cheat. It's a game theory issue, and this is something that I talk about in my review of The Dark Knight, the Joker, and I talk about game theory in that, so check out that if you want to look at the prisoner's dilemma. But that is really what cartels are facing as a prisoner's dilemma. It's easy to see that this is a prisoner's dilemma if we just think through the pricing strategy. Imagine you both set yours at 15 cents, and then you're selling and people choose from both, right? It's the same price, and so there's not really an advantage to go into one or the other. So maybe you go for both, or you go for the character you're a little bit more interested in. Then you conspire together to raise that price to 25 cents. People still buy comic books from both. They buy a few less, but they're still buying comic books from both. But imagine one of them decides to cheat on the agreement. Hey, we decided secretly to raise to 25 cents, but instead of raising to 25 cents, I'm going to switch to 20 cents. Now I've got a cheaper comic book, and not just a cheaper comic book, a significantly cheaper comic book for kids who are hard-strapped on money. And so when they come and see, like, well, I could get 5 Marvel comics for $1 or 4 DC comics for $1, then they're going to lean towards getting that extra comic. So by lowering the price, you could capture almost all of the market by just making sure kids can buy more comics. And so instead of raising prices together, you have this incentive to say, like, never mind, I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to undercut you and try to capture the rest of the market. So how do you make sure that you don't violate that agreement if you're colluding between companies? Well, often you need somebody to police you. You need another company or another party to say, hey, we want you to keep these prices. We have a way to coordinate these kind of things. Let's make sure that you guys stay on the same page. How are Marvel and DC able to do that? A key to this is looking at the publication information on the inside of these comic books. And you see they are both printed in Sparta, Illinois. A coincidence? No, they're using the same printer. It's very feasible, and in fact, some people have suggested that they use this publisher to make sure that they stayed on the same page on prices and coordinated those things. So we have the evidence that there was a cartel. We have the mechanism of how they were able to enforce that cartel, and that was through their publisher. When did this cartel break down? Well, if we continue to watch prices evolve, we'll see that in 1971, DC makes this move to increase their prices to 25 cents per comic book. And within 2 months about, Marvel also increases to 25 cents. So again, we have that evidence that they are colluding together to raise prices. But then the next month, Marvel drops to 20 cents. DC stays at that 25 cent mark, Marvel goes to 20 cents, and now we see a break in the cartel. And people have accused Marvel of being in this cartel and then breaking away from it to take advantage of this price gap. Now, previously there probably wasn't much of an advantage, right? These price increases were so small it would have been hard to deviate. But you went from 15 cents to 25 cents. That's a 66% increase in prices and gives Marvel a lot of room to move to try and get a cheaper comic book and capture the market. And capturing the market is the key here, because this is the first year that Marvel outsells DC. They priced their comic book lower, people ditched DC to come to Marvel, and all of a sudden Marvel gained the prominence as the lead publisher of comic books, and they haven't lost their spot since. These comic books are a Superman and Captain America comic book from each part of this collusion story. So over here we have the comics where they're at 15 cents. Marvel and DC are working together. Here's the time where they both raise to 25 cents. And then over here is when Marvel deviates and goes down to 20 cents and DC stays at 25 cents. And so this represents the beginning of the era where Marvel started dominating. I love this story because there's the Marvel DC aspect to it and how there's a deep economic story behind it, and it just gets me giddy thinking about that. If you're interested more in comic books, check out the time I opened up a box of rare comic books. And also, if you're interested more in how we analyze markets, check out this video about analyzing the market for raspberry shakes. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in these videos.